So in yesterday's class, we discussed about where and dynamic keywords and what is the difference between where and dynamic also we discussed, and string and string builder. These two differences also we discussed. Let's move to next concept. So in today's class, we are going to discuss one main important thing that is called enums and constants. Finally, we will move to selection statements. So let's add one more class. Constants demo. So approach, what I suggested is always when you are learning this concept, means whatever today you are learning, maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow, you have to use that. You have to use that in that program. Then you have to recollect that. Okay, this is a method. That's why you are writing like this. This is an enum. That's why we are writing like this. Because in C sharp, so many concepts are there. You can't remember all these things one after another. So today I'm discussing constants and enums. Maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow session, we have to use these constants and enums. Then by seeing that, you have to recognize that this is an enum or this is a constant. Like that, you have to identify. Okay. So that is very important practice for us, for you or me or for anyone. In that way only you can easily remember our concepts. Okay. So first of all, what is meant by variable? Variable is a temporary storage location which can hold a value. Variable is a temporary storage location which can hold a value. So if I declare a variable int a equal to 100, then in that, here a is called as a variable. A is called as a variable. And this variable value, wherever you want, you can change in the entire program. First of all, this a is called as local variable or local scope. For this a, what is the scope means? It's a local scope. Local scope means what? Within this method only you can access. What is the method? This is called as method. Within this method only you can access. And one more important about local variables means without initialize value, you can't use. That means what? If you are giving the value a equal to 100, then you can give. Otherwise, int b equal to convert dot to int 32 of console dot read line. This is also valid. But without initializing any value, if you declare a variable c, and if you are trying to print that, it will throw error. This already we discussed many times. A, it will valid. B, this is also valid. But when I'm giving this C, it's not valid. It will throw error. Why? You declared that variable C, but you are not initialized any value. Either runtime or statically, you are not initialized any value. That's why it is throwing error. So this is called as, these are called as local variables. Scope is within this method only. In any other method, if you are trying to access these variables, you can't access. In the same way, this is not possible because you are not initialized. Next one, int minimum amount equal to 500. I had declared this. And one more important thing about variables means once you declare a variable and if you initialize some value, later if you want, you can change that. See, a equal to a plus 10 or b equal to b plus 10. Like that, you can change that values. The variable value, wherever you want, you can change. Otherwise, b equal to 200. You can change the values. But if I want to declare some value in variable and and that way, that value I don't want to change from that. In that case, constants are going to be used. So constants also like variables only, but before that, if you define it as a const keyword, then those are called as constants. If you define that particular variable with const keyword, that is called as constants. And for constants, if you assign some value, that you can't change. For constants, if you assign some value, that value you can't change. That means, see, in the next line only, I'm giving minimum amount equal to 600 or 550. You can't change, or you can't write any operations also. Minimum amount plus 500 or 50. You can't give this. It will throw error. See, because here you are adding this and you are assigning that into that. See, the left hand side of the assignment must be a variable or a property or an indexer. Then only you can change. If it is a constant, you can't change. Okay. So here one more interview question is there. They will ask like, what is the difference between constant and read only? So this question I will answer when I start OOPS concept. When I start class variables, at that time I will explain. But keep remember, constants, if you define any variable as constant, then immediately you have to give. Even suppose I declared one variable as a constant. This is not possible. Constant float pi. And that pi equal to 3.14, I want to give next. It won't allow you. If you declare a variable as a constant, immediately you have to assign that value. Even in the next line also, it's not going to apply. And another important thing, whether you are defining a constant or a variable, whatever it is, if it is a long variable, long x is equal to 9,000 and float y is equal to 77.44 and float decimal z is equal to 66.77. If I'm assigning the values like this, if I'm trying to assigning the values, if it is variables, see, it is allowing all. Here I want to create a constant. Now, when I declare all these things as constant, it starts throwing errors. What is these errors? See, by default, this is also very important understanding. By default, when you are declaring int a equal to 10, then this 10 or AA equal to 10, this 10, it will treat it as an integer type of data. That means even this integer, this 10 is not maybe an integer. It even in short also it can hold. But by default, if you are giving any number, by default, the number type, it will take it as integer. The number type, it will take it as integer. But here, same thing, I declared a variable as long. I declared my variable as long. Then what value I have to pass? Long value only I have to pass. When I give this 9,000, what type of data it is taking? It is taking this as an integer type. But actually my intention is to pass a long type of data. Then what you have to specify at last, you have to specify this as L. If you specify this as L, it will take this as a long type of data. It will take this as a long type of data. Okay. Always for a long type of variable, if you want to assign some value and if you want to make that value as a long type, ending you have to give L. In the same way, if you are storing some decimal values, this is decimal only, both are decimals only. But why it is throwing error? The decimal initial, I mean, how a number it is taking the type as an integer. In the same way, for decimal values, by default, the type it will take it as double. By default, the type it will take it as double. So when I place the mouse, what is the error it is throwing? Double cannot be implicitly converts float. Use a suffix f really if your intention is to pass a float value. So here at last you have to give f notation. So if you give f suffix, then it is treating this particular value as a float type of value. It will treat this particular value as a float type of value. Same thing here, for a decimal notation should be m. That's it. So for this decimal ending, if you suffix with f, then it will treat that variable, sorry, it will treat that value type as single. So it will store in float. In the same way, if you notate that with m, it will treated this as a decimal value. So that value will store in decimal. That's it. For long L notation, for float F notation, for decimal M notation. These are mandatory for constants. Not only constants, even if it is value type also. Always if you want to make them as a float type, then you have to give this. Very important, keep remember. Not now, but later it will comes into picture. Any questions?
Ma'am, what is the difference for float and decimal?
Float and decimal means float is going to occupy 4 bytes of memory and
Okay,
decimal is going to occupy 8 bytes of memory, and double is going to occupy 16 bytes of memory.
okay,
I think I didn't send notes. I will send today. Okay.
okay. Yeah,
So in the data types and its sizes, everything I mentioned. Starting I showed, but anyway, I will send the notes also. Okay.
okay, okay, ma'am. Thanks.
Okay. Others also clear, right? I'm moving to next. So not now constants. Later I will use in many areas. Now next, where dynamic all these things. Another important thing, add class enum demo. And when you are giving class names, don't give standard keywords like class name should not be while, class name should not be for, class name should not be enum, or class name should not be namespace. Like that, standard keywords always they will be in this blue color. So don't give that as a class names. It will later major impact you will face. Static void main. Now see, if I'm declaring a variable as an integer, then if I declare my variable as an integer, then if I want to store some value, then I can store only numeric type of data, either positive or a negative, only numeric type of data you can store. But if I'm trying to store any string, will it take? No, it won't take. Or if I'm trying to store any number, will it take, sorry, any float value, will it take? No, it won't take. That means A is a strongly typed which can take only integer type of data. In the same way, if you take string, anything if you are giving in double quote, it will take. Other than double quotes, even if you are giving characters also, it won't take, right? So in the same way, if you take character, anything if you are giving in a single character, it will take. If you are giving anything in strings and all, it won't take. It will throw error because it can't take double quotes data. It can't take double quotes data, right? You have to give it in single quote only, right? Like that, every data type is having separate way of representation. Every data type is having separate way of representation, and every data type is going to take specific type of data only, right? Int is behaving in a different way, string, char, all these things are behaving in a different way. Now, some scenario came, I want to store male or female. I want to store male or female in my variable. Then obviously this is what collection of characters. How to declare my variable? String gender is equal to, you can store male or you can store female, right? This is good. But the problem with this is, if I declare my gender variable as a string type of data, string, how it will take anything which is in double quotes. Anything which is in double quote. That means in this gender variable, I can give male, female, or I can give any of this kind of data. It won't throw any error. I don't want like that. Like how integer is restricting, I want positive or a negative numbers only. How string is restricting, I want a double quote data only. How char is restricting, I want single quote data only. In the same way, my gender, for my gender also, I want to provide a restriction that you should take only male or female. But how? Whatever data types we know, in that no such kind of thing is there, right? So enums are going to place a major role. Enum, again enum is a standard keyword which is going to define a type. Enum gender. Inside this, I'm giving male, female. Two things I'm giving, male and female. And male and female, and my gender variable, I'm going to define this as a gender type. How integer, string, char types are there? My gender variable I declared as a gender type. Now, see, right hand side, it is throwing error. Along with female, I added something, it is throwing error. Now, let me add only female. Then also it will throw error. Why? Double quotes is the notation for string representation, right? But for gender, for enum representation, it's different. Same female only I can give, but it's not like this. Gender dot. That's it. Now, if you observe here, other than this male and female, you can't give any other value. How can I say this gender is an enum? Keep remember, again and again I will ask these points in many areas. Gender dot, then you are getting male and female both. Gender dot, when you are pressing, you are getting male and female both. That means this is working fine. This is working fine. Okay, so and you are having some initial value for both. If I select male, the initial value is 0. If I select the initial value is 1, that means this is working fine. Now I selected female. Now for this gender, the initial value is, for this gender, the initial value is female, it's taking. Now if I want to print this value, console.writeLine selected gender plus gen. What it is going to print, if I want to execute this, close on. Console demos. What is this? Enum, right? Enum demo. Now run. See, gender is female. But generally, in database, if I want to store this data, I won't store this male or female. Why? Because always string comparison is little harder than numeric value comparison. String comparison is not harder, but generally developers will do many mistakes. That's why always in database, if I want to save, we won't save strings if that string is having some value. So in the same way here for gender, we are having some value. What is that? How to fetch that? Before that, if you specify int for that gender, whatever you are selected for that, what value is there, that value also it will show. Selected gender is 1. So display purpose I will use female, and storing purpose I will use that number. Display purpose I will use that gender, and storing purpose that integer value I will hold. So now this is okay, everything is working fine. But if I store male, what will happen? Male. When I run this, male and initial value, it will show 0. Why it is going to show 0? Because in enums, what is the purpose of this enums? If I want to create a string constants, then enums are going to be used. If you are not giving any value, then initial value it will start with 0. And the next one, next 2, next 3, next 4, like that it will take. Because of that, male it's taking as 0. Now I want to give the initial value. Enum account type, something I created, another enum. So saving, current account, joint account. 3 things are there. Now for saving, I gave the initial value as 1. Remaining, I'm not giving anything. And I want to declare my variable account type at is equal to account type dot I selected current account, and now I want to print these values whatever I selected. Selected account type, selected account type, this is 80 and this is 80 I gave. Now when I run this, it will shows that value as 2. Why it is showing 2? Because you had given some initial value here. You had given initial. There is no rule that you have to give the initial value with 1. You can give with this value with 5. Then 5, 6, 7 it will take. So the next output will be shows as 6. See? So whatever value you are initializing, from that position onwards, it's going to start. It will be 5, 6, and 7. And one more type of enum is there. Enum employee type. So permanent, temporary, hourly. And for permanent, I am giving as 10. For temporary, I am giving as 2. For hourly, I am giving as 11. Like that, for each string constant, if you want, you can give separate type, separate numeric value. This is also valid. Suppose from long back, suppose I want to work with naval dockyard project. In that project is running from long back, and earlier they are using these standard values for permanent employees, temporary employees, hourly employees. Maybe some other reason they are giving these values. So you have to maintain the same values. You can't change this to 1, 2, 3, because the entire functionality is going to be wrong. In that situation, you will use this. But keep remember, if you are not giving anything, it's good. Value will be 0 and 1. If you are giving some initial value, the next continuation values will be taken for the others. Whereas if you are giving values, individual values, then you can't give for only 2. You have to give for all. Always that is a good practice. Some people what they will do is Permanent they will give 10, hourly they will give 11, and they will leave this empty. So what it will take? Now hourly is 11, temporary is also 11. Why? The continuation. You are not giving anything, though continuation it will take that. So if you are giving something, give for all, not for only one. Always that's the good habit. So again, this enums plays a major role when you people are creating some project, that to banking project if you take. So how many types of accounts? Saving, current, joint, fixed deposit, like all these things as in enums initially we will create. So tomorrow if the bank is introducing some other account type, if you add that account type in this enum, then wherever you are using in the project, everywhere it's going to change. That is the beauty of enum. Okay, very, very important concept. Any questions? Okay, I'm moving to next. Okay, next. Add, right click, add one more class. Selection statements. Static void main. So what is meant by selection statements? These selection statements are used to check some condition. If the condition is true, it executes some set of statements. If the condition is false, it executes another set of statements. But whether the condition is true or false, whether the condition is true or false, they are going to execute that statements only once. They are going to execute only once. More than once, it's not going to execute. More than once, it's not going to execute. Okay. So let's see what are the selection statements are available means if and switch. Two main if and switch. Even ternary operator also comes under selection statement only. But those are operators. So initially we discussed that. Okay. So how many types of how many types of ifs are there means simple if, second one nested if, third one multiple if. Simple if, nested if, and multiple if. Total three ifs are there. Let's see all these things. Simple if means first it checks the condition. If the condition is true, it executes some set of statements. Set of statements. And else, if the condition is false, it is going to execute another set of statements. That means whether the condition is true, what we have to do, condition is false, what we have to do. Only this thing we are mentioning in this simple if. Whereas nested if means if it is going to check the condition, if the condition is true, then one more if condition if we are checking, that is called as nested if. If inside another if means nested if. And one more multiple if. That means if some condition, set of statements, else another one more if condition. Like that, if you are doing more number of condition checkings and all, that will comes under multiple if. Now all these things I want to cover with one example. Read 5 subjects marks and calculate total average grade if the student passed in all subjects. Now I have to read 5 subjects marks. Console.writeLine enter 5 subjects marks and int M2, 3, 4, 5. 5 subjects marks. Now, anyone tell me here M1, M2, M3, M4, M5, what is the scope of these variables? What is the scope of these variables?
It can be used in the main method.
So the scope is just before I explained.
Is it local for main method
Yes,
as well?
just
Oh,
before in the constants I explained, right? When I'm explaining this constants demo, I explained these variable scope is local scope. Okay, so here also, what is the scope of these variables means local scope. Please don't forget all these things. Okay, these variable scope is local scope. Now, I had taken all that 5 subjects marks. Now, I have to check before calculating total and average, I want to check whether the student is passed in all subjects or not. How to check that? If M1 greater than or equal to 35 and M2 greater than or equal to 35 and M3 greater than or equal to 35 and M4 greater than or equal to 35 and M5 is greater than or equal to 35. In all subjects, if the person got above 35, do something, else do something. This is called simple if. Checking the condition. If the condition is true, go. If the condition is false, do some other work. If the false, then I'm printing console.writeline. Sorry, you are failed. You are failed. Done. Suppose if the student passed in all subjects, then what I want to do, so if the condition is true, this block is going to execute. If the condition is false, this block is going to execute. Okay, so this is called block, one block, and this is another block. So int total equal to m1 plus m2 plus m3 plus m4 plus m5, and I want to declare float. Average is equal to total by 5. Now here this total comma average is called as block variables. This total and average are called as block variables. Means within the block only it's available. Within the block only it's available. Outside of the block it's not available. Outside of the block it's not available. Keep remember, this total and average is called as block variables. Within the block only they are available. Or you can specify they are in called as block scope. So we can call it as block variables. Keep remember, two scopes I said. One is local scope, second one is block scope. So I want to print this total and average. Console.writeline total equal to plus total. And I don't want to use, because I want to print two variables. This time I want to use string interpolation syntax. Total equal to TOT and slash n average equal to AVG double quotes. That's it. I printed all the values. Now I want to check whether all these are coming or not. So I'm taking this selection statements, run. In all subjects I had given above values. But in one subject I entered little less. See, sorry, you are failed. And in all subjects, if I am giving above, see, my total is 402. But what is my average? 80. This is not correct. Because 402 by 5, how much you will get? There will be always a decimal value. So, in that case, what you have to do here is you have to typecast. You have to typecast total as float. Why? Because when you are doing this divided by, then either this variable or this variable should be float. Then only you will get a exact value. So what I am doing here is I am typecasting my total as a float type. Then when I run this, see 379, 75.8. It's working fine, right? Now my total and average I'm able to get. Last and final, what I want to do, I want to calculate grade. Now here I'm giving one more if. Here I'm giving one more if. This is what nested if. One if inside another if I'm giving. If average is greater than or equivalent to 80, then console.writeLine grade equal to A. Else. So this is called nested if. One if inside, another if is there. Now this is called multiple if. One if else, another if I'm checking. If average is less than 80 and average is greater than or equivalent to 60, then B grade. Else if average is less than 60 and average is greater than 40, then C grade. Else finally D grade. So one if condition fails, another if condition. If that fails, another if condition. This is called as multiple if. This is called as multiple if. Okay. So keep remember, this is also very, very important. Almost all these three ifs I covered. Now run this program, give the input 89, 67. See, total, average, grade, all are showing properly, right? So any questions in these programs, whatever we discussed? Total two scopes I explained, local scope, block scope. One more is there, class scope. Within the class you are defining. That in OOPS I will explain. So please go through with all these things. And today I will send notes to all of you. And one more thing, please share your email in chat window, so that I will send the notes. I mean, all for basic notes, all the basic notes I will send. Once I start methods and all, remaining notes I will send. Okay, but you are getting a continuous 4 days holidays. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 days holidays you are getting. So till now, whatever concepts we learned, all those things, please do practice. Okay, because once from Monday onwards, again I will move little fast. Okay, Please finish all the pending practices. Any questions you want to ask?
Ma'am, would you give us any assignments or conduct any tests weekly or something?
It will take some time because here all we are learning basic part, right?
Mhm.
That's why it will take some time to come to that uh, I mean practice and all. But again I'm saying initial concepts put some concentration till oops
Oh,
finishing. I can't give any assignments. Whatever at least in class I explained, please finish all those practice. That it will take more time for you.
oh.
um, um, Pratibhan, can you ask Naresh team to send that previous videos, because they are going to take care of all these things. Today only you ask, because I think from tomorrow onwards all are going for leave, so you can't get any response. Okay, and others can. I am getting. I got only 2 emails. Mithil, are you there? Can you text your email ID so that I will send the notes? And Simran, didn't receive from you also, whether you are there or not. Others can leave.
Ma'am, when is the next class? Wednesday,
Monday,
Thursday, and
Monday.
Friday we don't have.
Again Monday,
Monday.
because
Okay.
even Naresh team is also not available. So
Okay.
again, our next sessions are Monday. Okay then.
Yeah.
Happy
Thank
Pongal.